The Harvest.
Greetings to you, dear Ifrikya FM listeners, and welcome to the latest news from across the continent and around the world with yours truly, Imene Nouad. We start with Algerian diplomacy in Geneva before the United Nations Human Rights Council. Algeria, through its permanent representative Idriss Al-Tarash, reiterates that its approach to the issue of anti-personnel mines is shaped by a painful national experience. Algeria continues to highlight the persistent aftermath of the French colonial legacy, responsible for laying nearly 11 million mines along its borders. The ambassadors calls on the international community to place the needs of victims at the heart of diplomatic efforts. In Western Sahara file, the Algerian network of journalists in solidarity with the Sahrawi people is calling for urgent international action to protect Sahrawi civilian detainee Naama Asfari, who has been on an open-ended hunger strike since June 8th in a Moroccan prison. In a closing statement issued after a solidarity gathering, the network condemns what it describes as the inhuman detention condition of the Gdeim Izek prisoners and expresses full support for Asfari's demand, including respect for his fundamental rights and family visits. To help us better understand the significance of this appeal and the latest development in this case, Samar Hamadi joins us in the studio. Hello, Samar.
Hello, Iman.
Samar, can you or what are the key messages delivered by the network, and why is this appeal considered so urgent at this stage?
Yes, Iman, beyond the concerns you've just mentioned, the Algerian network of journalists in solidarity with the Sahrawi people says, it is following deep concern what it described as the deteriorating conditions of Sahrawi political detainees from the Gdeim Izek, as you mentioned, a group held in Moroccan prisons. In its closing statement, the network condemned what it called continued violations of their fundamental rights and reiterated its full support for Naama Asfari, who has been, as we know, on an open-ended hunger strike since June 8 in protest against what he says is the denial of his basic legal and human rights. The statement, Iman, also denounced the continued refusal by the Moroccan authorities to allow his wife, French citizen Claude Mangin, to visit him, describing the measure as a violating of both humanitarian and family rights. The network renewed its call for respect for Asfari's fundamental rights, an end to degrading treatment and unrestricted contact with his family. Incidentally, Iman, I also spoke with Sahrawi journalist Al-Ma'louma Bahia, who expressed her gratitude to the Algerian people and the journalist who organized this solidarity gathering. She said this gesture of support is something that, in her words, I will quote, "we do not see elsewhere," highlighting its symbolic importance for Sahrawi detainees and their families. Let's listen to her before giving the rest of the details.
We welcome the statement issued by the Algerian network of journalists in solidarity with the Sahrawi people on Saturday. Certainly what this prisoner is going through today is what all Sahrawi prisoners in occupation prisons are subjected to. The denial of their political legitimate and human rights, as well as the abuse they undoubtedly suffer inside their prison cells. This comes in addition to their unlawful detention, which was of course condemned by the United Nations in its 2023 decision, which confirmed the illegal nature of detention of the Gdeim Izek prisoners. We remain with the statement issued by the Algerian networks of journalists in solidarity with the Sahrawi people. In fact, this statement comes across as a form of advocacy, which is in reality has been largely absent at the regional and international levels.
Yes, so even as we just listened, the network also recalled a 2023 decision by the United Nations Committee Against Torture, which considered the detention of the Gdeim Izek prisoners unlawful and called for their release and compensation. It urged international and regional human rights organizations, media outlets, and civil society groups to step up efforts to protect Naama Asfari and the other Sahrawi political detainees we've been talking since days. Finally, the network announced the creation of a monitoring committee bringing together journalists, media professionals, and civil society figures to follow developments in the case and strengthen coordination with the international network of journalists in solidarity with the Sahrawi people. Iman.
Thank you, Summer, for all these updates. Now shifting to other updates as the cooperation with a new step to strengthen parliamentary diplomacy, where the president of Algeria's Council of the Nation, Azzouz Nasri, launches parliamentary friendship groups with several African and Arab parliaments. The move aims to strengthen cooperation and deepen Algeria's relation with its partners. On this occasion, Azzouz Nasri reaffirms Algeria's commitment to promoting parliamentary cooperation and encouraging constructive dialogue to serve shared interests. Let's hear President of the ICN's words.
Under
the leadership of President Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algeria is committed to remaining true to its historical mission of strengthening Arab and African ties and defending the causes of liberation, justice, and shared development. Algeria believes that building a stronger present and a better future depends on reinforcing this dual Arab and African identity and using it as a source of strength, influence, and leadership at both of the regional and international levels.
During the same event, the ambassador of Ethiopia to Algeria, Mukhtar Mohammed Wari, welcomes the initiative and says stronger parliamentary ties can help expand cooperation between African countries and promote shared development. Let's hear what Ambassador Wari says.
Algeria has a very excellent relation with Ethiopia. Ethiopia and Algeria enjoy not only strong diplomatic relations, but also strong political, historical, and fraternal relations that transcend borders, that transcend government. Therefore, the establishment of this parliamentary friendship group between the two countries will further strengthen the already strong political and diplomatic relation between our two countries. And in this event today, President of the Council of Nations, we have received members of the Ethiopian Friendship Group of the Algerian Parliament.
Still in cooperation, Niger is hosting a specialized training session for religious leaders from the Sahel on countering extremism and extremist narratives, organized by the League of Scholars and Imams of the Sahel in partnership with Coordination and Legion Unit. The initiative focuses on strengthening intellectual resilience and promoting moderate religious discourse to prevent radicalizations. Security in Somalia turning to East Africa as the Somali Ministry of Defense has announced the elimination of 30 members of the Shabab terrorist group. The joint operation conducted on Wednesday and Thursday in the central Shabelle region resulted in destruction of mobilization centers, training facilities, as well as significant stockpiles of weapons and logistical equipment intended for planning attacks. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, on the other hand, says Africa is the resource and has the resource and potential to drive the next century of human development, urging greater regional cooperation as global trade patterns shift. Speaking at the closing of the 9th Southern African Costume Unit Summit, he says no African country can prosper alone and highlights the AfCFTA and SACU as key of boosting intra-African trade. He concludes that the region is hosting and choosing industrialization over dependence. Let's listen to this small part of President Ramaphosa's speech.
We need to build resilience and reduce the economic dependencies that render our African economies vulnerable to the whims of international trade. The certainties upon which the international trading system rested for decades are steadily giving way to uncertainty. The decline in official development assistance has affected members of our union, where we tended to rely on development assistance that has dwindled down.
Now shifting to African health update in Central African Republic, cholera epidemic is hitting the country with 197 cases already recorded and 24 deaths, representing a worrying fatality rate over 12%. The epicenter is located in southwest of the country. Still in health updates, the DRC has reported 1,203 confirmed Ebola cases, including 304 deaths, according to the latest official updates. Now, shifting to other news, this week, every year on June 27th, the world marks World Microbiome Day to raise awareness about the tiny microorganisms that are essential to life. This year's theme, Microbiome Matters, highlights how these invisible microbes support our health, protect the environment, and shape a healthier future for Africa and the world. We spoke with Professor Zubair Sari, a specialist in internal medicine. He says that the day deserves a greater attention because of its vital role in raising awareness among people across Africa and around the world. Let's hear it.
It is clear that this day is very important for Africa. It helps raise awareness among the public, but also among the authorities, especially those working in research. They need to find ways to develop this field. Research is very important to better understand the African microbiome. We need to know what is happening in different African countries. These studies will also help confirm the important role of our traditional food and our ancestral diet in keeping the microbiome healthy.
Now, shifting to cultural updates, Zimbabwe is decolonizing its film industry to reclaim its cultural narrative through the Zimbabwe Film Strategy 2025-2030. Key interventions include studio construction, tax incentives, local content funding, and the short film grant. Permanent Secretary Nicholas Moyo says investing in local storytellers is key to unshackling communities from Western narratives. Charlotte Wamiridza shares more in this report. Let's hear it.
For generations, Zimbabwe's stories have been told by outsiders. The world saw a vision of Zimbabwe that was not its own. Today, the narrative is being rewritten. The camera is now in Zimbabweans' hands. The stories are now in Zimbabweans' voices. This is more than filmmaking. This is cultural preservation. This is identity. Through new film studios, skills training at the Zimbabwean Film and Television School, and increased funding for local content, the country is now building a foundation for its creative future. The goal is not just to make films, but to ensure that Zimbabwe's history, traditions, and values are passed down through generations. This cultural revival is also about projection. Zimbabwe is taking its stories to the world through cultural diplomas, film festivals, and international co-productions. The message is clear: Zimbabwe will no longer be defined by others. It will define itself through its own lens, on its own terms.
Dear listeners, this is all we harvested today. Thank you for paying attention to the fullest. It was directed by Nariman Karmis, control board with Youssef, streaming with Riyad, and observation with Tawis. Thank you once again. Keep tuning to your favorite radio channel, Ifrikya FM, the voice of Africa.
Trésor d'Afrique, notre patrimoine nous forme,
nous individualise et nous rend dissemblables.
Trésor d'Afrique, une plongée dans la splendeur de notre continent.
Sur